With Volume 3 announced in production, I think it's appropriate to look at the past season and rank them from my least favorite to most favorite, and I'll just say this straight out that I loved every single chapter in the season. Each chapter was well paced, well acted, and well animated. It's just a matter of which chapter I prefer over the other. That's where this countdown exists. I'm going to do a top 12 for this countdown, and since there are 12 chapters in total for Volume 2, I'll be talking about every single chapter and why I feel that particular chapter belongs in that placement. Like always, since I'll be talking about all the chapters, prepare for some major spoilers, so I highly recommend watching every chapter of Volume 2 before watching this video. And remember, the placement I set for each chapter is solely my opinion, so you may have a different likes or dislikes towards my placement, but that's where the comment section is for. Let me know what you think is the best or the worst chapter of Volume 2, but for now, let's not burn ourselves with any roses filled with shadowed mirrors. God damn, did I just really write that down? We're counting down the top 12 chapters of RWBY Volume 2. A lot of people from what I've seen really like this episode, and while I do enjoy it myself, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's my favorite. And because we're starting off on the countdown with the number 12 segment, you can tell that this was my least favorite episode. I thought there were so many ways to improve this episode, so overall, I kind of found it somewhat disappointing. Before we get to why I found this episode a disappointment, I still enjoy the jokes, I still enjoy the character interactions, and the fight scenes are awesome. But as the episode following after Chapter 3, it seems to resolve the situation rather quickly. Before the episode, we had a long chase scene with Penny avoiding Ruby until it's revealed that Penny is not allowed to interact with Ruby by any means due to her father's protective nature, and that's it. We never see her again throughout the entire season with the exception of some brief cameos. She just appears to confirm that she is in fact a robot, which seems pretty obvious considering she has Xbox energy swords compacted inside her nuts and bolts. I really wish I'd seen more of Penny after her appearance in Volume 1, but it seems that we will have to wait until Volume 3 comes out. Anyways, we lead back to the other three who were in the middle of their investigation, and it doesn't really seem to go anywhere with the exception of Blake's investigation. Weiss was already settled in Chapter 3, so there's really no need to follow up with anything until we get to that chapter, and Yang was pretty pointless. She and her teammate Neptune gathered no leads to investigation, so basically nothing was accomplished. We do get to see some cool fan service with Yang talking to Junior like she did in the Yellow trailer, but that's about it. With Blake's investigation with her partner's son, they found out about Torchwick's plan to recruit more Faunists into the White Fang with the power of Metal Gear. Then we get to this awesome chase sequence which is very well animated. The action blends in perfectly with the environment with the destruction of an ongoing freeway and countless of car crashes. I'm assuming this destruction of vehicular manslaughter is only in the abandoned freeway district. Neptune and Sun gets knocked off, so it's up to Team RWBY to stop the Metal Gear. Using Weiss's dust to their advantage, they shrouded the area in icy fog in order to sneak up and attack the Metal Gear. Then a hard rock music plays in the background, tensioning up the fight scene with the girls kicking so much ass. With Yang knocked down, every hit she endures builds up more energy meter, and in tune, she becomes more stronger. In other words, she becomes Super Saiyan. Then the die music kicks in, and as Yang assumes her ultimate form, the team continues to fight the Metal Gear until it's completely destroyed, and as the chorus plays, it suddenly becomes anticlimactic. This lady, whose name is Napolitan, suddenly pops up to save Torchwick and escorts him safely. And this is happening during the chorus of the song, where it's usually the climax of the battle. Technically it is, since the chorus does play during the end of the battle, but there wasn't a whole lot of destruction. It was mostly gloating from Torchwick's mouth and it ends with the two escaping. To top it off, I really do like the song Die. It gives that oomph of revenge and madness as the fighter is subconsciously growing with immense power. For reference points, just listen to the lyrics of the chorus. Perfect song to show how angry you are, and it fits very well to Yang's Super Saiyan character, but the punchline doesn't really accomplish that. The silhouette shatters and they get away. It's not really a revenge fantasy if the revenge got away. I know it would be completely baffling if a character did actually die, but that's where I feel this song was released too soon. Like, the song should have been played on a different scene or at least timed differently. If anything, I found it a lot more fitting if the chorus plays during the destruction of the Metal Gear because we feel the impact of actual destruction rather than an illusion. I might be thinking about this way too hard, and I understand that most of you guys are confused about the way I think, Or by now I'm just nitpicking. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy this episode. If anything, I feel this episode, if it was in Volume 1, it would be in the top 5 or something. It just happens that this episode was my least favorite out of the entire Volume 2 season. RWBY usually has its funny moments, its epic moments, or both at the same time. However, once in a while, it's just nice to have some dialogue or backstory in order to further develop the characters or build up the plot point that will occur later on in the series. This episode is just dialogue, and that's about it. To be fair though, this episode does further develop each of Team RWBY as they question what they were doing in discussion and why they were doing it. Being a huntress is not just a simple task. There has to be a motivational process on what rewards would be seeped, what challenges they need to accomplish, and for the most part, they handled the dialogue very well with the 3 RWBY characters. During Chapter 9, Professor Oobleck questioned 3 of the 4 teammates as to why they joined the academy to become a huntress. In the following chapter, all 3 were bothered by Professor Oobleck's interrogation and started to question and discuss about their motivational force. Weiss has always been more of a perfectionist and wants to better herself. Trapped behind the Schnee name, she must uphold her namesake in order to keep the family name running with power. However, she realizes it's not a luxurious task. There's always a negative stereotype that rich people don't have to do anything to maintain their status. However, Weiss digresses and focuses on continuing to better herself rather than just simply doing adequate, which is complemented by her explanation on how her father's company is recently running very poorly. Blake is more of the freedom-fighting survivalist. Born into the race as a faunist, she is forced to kill just to survive in a harsh, prejudiced environment. And with that harsh prejudice comes with a brainwashed follower. She was blinded by her fellow people, but couldn't see the bigger picture on truly ending the long war. And once she finally realizes the White Fang's true intention, she's left with questions about what she's truly fighting for. Is she fighting for her people on behalf of her heritage, or against them now that it's being ruled by corrupt power? Ultimately, her answer to both of them is to run away. Leave all the corrupt propaganda. But even then, she knows the consequences of doing such a task. Lastly, we have Yang. Her motivating factor on becoming a huntress is the thrill for adventure. She's on an adrenaline high and she's always wanting to increase her dopamine level to the max. But why? Her reasoning is just for fun, but then she questions why it's fun. She never really thought of the question as all she does was act without thinking. In contrast, she also explains a little bit of jealousy towards RWBY, where she explains that RWBY wants to become a huntress because it's the right thing to do. She's not seeking for the reward and she's not doing it because she wants to, but she feels she has to. And in essence, that perfectly explains why RWBY wasn't interrogated. The 3 had to truly question their motivational factor as to why they become huntresses, and after all their talking, they realized their true goal was the same as RWBY's, putting their needs aside to help others. I'll be honest, after rewatching this episode several times, I can truly appreciate the storytelling. This episode has a nice change of pace from all the action and hilarity the team is always accustomed to. However, I feel you have to be in the right mindset in order to watch this episode. The first time watching this episode, I honestly felt a little bored from all the explanation, but if you look into this episode in the right mindset, this scene is quite honestly one of the best of the season. Still, it gets the number 11 spot just for not hooking me into it immediately. You may notice throughout this countdown I may be leaving out details for certain episodes. For example, in Chapter 10 I left out the detail from General Ironwood questioning about Ozpin's tactical actions because that was built up before the episode was published. I also left out RWBY falling into the ruins to figure out that Torchic was behind the scene of the crime because that would be further expanded upon future episodes. So don't be alarmed when I don't mention a specific moment in the chapter because I will either be talking about them fully for a different chapter or I probably don't really care about it too much. Case in point, Chapter 2. I don't remember too many notable moments from this chapter aside from the start of Blake's struggles investigating the White Fang, and the twist ending from the 3 of the main villains disguising themselves as students. There wasn't too many story when it comes to this episode, however I put this episode higher than Chapter 10 simply because it was funnier. In Chapter 10, I can recall 2 funny moments, the slapstick Metal Gear sequences, and Oobleck's explanation as to what happened to RWBY. But with Chapter 2, there were way more funnier moments I remember. This library scene where Team RWBY plays this board game where you conquer nations, the crushing hopes and defeat expressed from RWBY and Weiss. For God's sakes, they made a Yu-Gi-Oh reference! this scene alone just felt a lot more memorable to me, with everyone constantly referring Weiss as the Ice Queen and just random bits of moments from Nora and Ren. It wasn't enough to make it any higher on this list, but I feel it was worth showing. It's a silly episode, and while it doesn't really have a whole lot riding on it, it's a harmless episode that I feel you should just watch just for the entertainment value.
Young lady, what in the world could you possibly have in that bag that could be so important to bring it with?
Call of Duty stole this!
This episode follows up with what happens after the school dance, where Ruby is being interrogated and questioned about the mysterious thief. Nothing really was shown during this interrogation between the teachers and Ruby. I honestly thought that Ruby was going to be in trouble or something after the cliffhanger from episode 7, but it seems like the faculty members of Beacon truly know that Ruby is not that kind of person, which honestly makes sense. Still though, it feels a little anticlimactic, and I wish there was a little more interaction between Ruby and the faculty members. Hell, even Glinda tries to call out Ruby on her interrogation, but it seems that the other teachers don't find anything suspicious about Team RWBY's investigation. We do, however, see some more tension between the faculty members as General Ironwood, I swear to god, that sounds like a name of a character from some RWBY hentai, has a dispute against the Beacon professors, with him sending his troops to investigate and seek out the perpetrators, while Glinda and Osmond stating otherwise, saying that they should not act in such a panic. But enough of that backstory and tension, there's Swy! God, I hope he at least poked some holes. What the hell is wrong with their father?
He said a dog? In the mail? Oh, he does stuff like this all the time.
And this is not the first time he's done such a thing? Well, as much as this scene right here questions my beliefs on animal support in the RWBY universe, this is one of the funniest scenes in the episode. With the interaction between the group's reaction is just top notch, and special mention goes for Swy's voice acting, going from disgusted, immature brat to kawaii as fuck. I also like the little touches like how Blake is somewhat scared of Swy since she is a fondness relating to a cat. You can say that during this scene she was truly acting like a pussy. A pussy. A pussy! Afterwards, Osmond gives a mission briefing on the 4 remnants of Vacuole. Everyone on their team is set on a mission. Depending on what class they are either in some basic task or something dangerous and life-threatening. Guess what Team RWBY wants to be in? However, unfortunately, because they're first-year students, they can't accept the mission. With the exception of a little rule-breaking from Osmond. I see what you're doing, you sly, cheeky professor, you. He even explains that if he refuses to cooperate, they'll still find a way to do that mission regardless. Well, sarcastically of course, but I think we get the hint. I like Osmond. He reminds me of my 10th grade math teacher who acts like a dick, but does so in a very funny way and sees the potential in his students. Shoutouts to you, Mr. Ferraro. Osmond's development with Team RWBY is something I've never seen a whole lot of teachers do to their students, especially in anime. How the teachers interact with their students in a more casual yet respectable manner. With all the jokes and drama that goes on in this episode, I found Professor Osmond's character to be quite fascinating. He only speaks his thoughts and how he perceives them to be a beneficial goal. And not only is he an intelligent man, but he's also a respectable principal. Always looking out for his students, well, mainly Team RWBY. I don't think I've ever seen him interact with any other students besides Ruby, Weiss, Yang, and Blake. But regardless, he sees the potential in his students and wants them to take the job and gain experience from them. He knows they face dangerous features beforehand, and he knows that regardless, they'll do their best to search and destroy, so might as well search and destroy. So Team RWBY gets a mission alongside with a mentor who will be aiding them along their mission. Who happens to be...
Who's ready to fight for their lives?
Yep, it's that coffee-addicted teacher who can speak as fast as Eminem rapping. Professor Bartholomew Oobleck. Oh, we'll get to him later. The field trip episode is... well, first and foremost, it's kind of misleading. They're not on a field trip, they're just preparing for it. With that nitpick aside, I really like this episode as it gives out the right amount of humor and character development, especially on Osmond's end, with both his questions of disbelief against Ironwood and his speech of encouragement with Team RWBY. Plus, I don't think there's ever a better enough time to introduce Swy. He's not just randomly shoehorned just to be an animal companion to the group, as you'll see furthermore during the next episodes he appears in. He's the lighthearted character that can bring joy to the team. I mean, just look at this cute little face. He's so adorable. He manages to make Weiss turn from the Ice Queen to the Snow Princess. The only bad thing I have to say about this episode is that it was focused on only portions of character development. The interrogation scenes felt rushed, and the interaction with Velvet and Team RWBY felt way too short. And I'm sorry, Katie Ward, if you're watching this, I felt your voice acting wasn't up to par with the other voice actors and actresses. I would say I don't believe in the Australian accent, but apparently Miss Ward was born in Sydney, so I really don't know what to believe anymore. But otherwise, this episode, while not having too much of a strong beginning, just keeps getting better and better with each time passing by. This episode starts off with the group lamenting about Blake not going to the dance, with Yang coming up with a scheme to convince Blake to take a break from her constant knife shifts, with comedic effect as well. Look, Rooster Teeth, I know she's a cat, but yeah, screw it, just keep doing what you're doing, this shit's hilarious. Jean has a problem as it starts off with the same comedic routine as the previous scene, and he wants to ask Weiss out to the dance by talking to Ren, who really at the end doesn't help at all since it's Pyrrha who told him the advice. Ren, ladies and gentlemen, women want to be with him, men want to be him, doesn't know his own attractiveness. We get to what I believe is the highlight of the episode when Yang tries to convince Blake to slow down on her progress since it's the only thing she's been focusing on. This leads us to Yang's backstory. One day, her mother disappeared and Yang wanted to seek for answers. In a way, she was in a similar situation to Blake's situation. She went to this haunted-looking building to search for her mother, but was ambushed by monsters, and if it wasn't for her uncle, both she and RWBY would have been dead. That's the analogy Yang wanted to share to Blake. If Blake continues to seek for the answers without taking a break, she too can break into illogical actions and eventually get herself killed in the process. Blake still doesn't listen, but eventually Yang turns Super Saiyan to convince her that this is serious business, and how much the group really cares for her if she really goes over the edge. Oh yeah, and Jean also didn't ask Weiss out on the dance because she asked Neptune. How many episodes does it take for him to get over? Okay then. This episode ends with the group preparing for the school dance with Blake showing up as well. This episode has a nice cliffhanger with the bad guys of the group hinting at their infiltration. I like this episode, but while not perfect, it stands as a fine episode. It has the right amount of humor, and it develops Yang's and Blake's relationship. I honestly don't have any other means of describing this episode. Maybe the comment section will give me some materials to work with, who knows? Let me check real quickly. No. The one episode where they developed Penny. Yeah, I'm still bitter at the fact that Penny gets so little screen time considering how awesome she is, but at least the episode that stars her was very well done. Before we get to her though, we start off with the investigation team picking out plans for their plot after Jean gets shot down.
One day.
$50 says no. Team RWBY and, for some reason, Sun and Neptune investigates for any leads to the cause or any information on Torchwick smuggling back at the bay. While RWBY investigates, she notices a peculiar friend who looks exactly like the same robot chick back in Volume 1. Turns out that girl is indeed Penny, but rather than a joyous reunion she was expecting, Penny was trying her best to avoid confrontation. Eventually, RWBY convinces her and Penny decides to talk, but only in a secluded area. A sidewalk! Yeah, okay. It's explained that Penny's father is a very protective person and he doesn't want any harm done with her. That includes being associated with RWBY and her friends. At the end of the sidewalk and into an even more public area. Seriously, you guys can't just meet at like a junkyard or a hotel or something other than outside a building? RWBY and Penny are now seeing a presentation of robotic soldiers and a Metal Gear. And because they decide to meet up and talk about their situations in public, they got caught.
No. Duh.
A chase scene commences, Penny saves RWBY from vehicular manslaughter, and at the end of the episode it's revealed that, gasp, she's also a robot! Okay, yeah, the impact of the news wasn't as great since the very first episode where Penny appears in, it was pretty obvious from her speech patterns, lack of social skills, and choice of weapons that she was a freaking robot. But aside from us as the viewers knowing about who she is, do the RWBY characters know? I do wish they would reveal her as a robot in a different way, but the way she showed her capabilities was good enough of an indication for RWBY to be pleasantly shocked about the experience. A minor hiccup pretty much reflects on Penny's bad habit of lying, where every time she says something she doesn't think is true, she starts to hiccup. If there's one word I can describe this episode, it's misleading. Not every information is like that, but from what we've been presented in the story, what someone is saying doesn't really mean that's what they want or feel. This is even extended during Weiss's investigation with her father's relationship, where she's happy whenever she talks about her father and his accomplishments, but sad when no one else is seeing her. I don't think this episode was fantastic by any means, but it was good enough to keep me entertained with the series and see what happens afterwards. Plus, the jokes are hilarious, so that helps too.
I guess Neptune could come with me.
Nah.
But...
We can't just wait with life to take until they think we're ready.
Search and Destroy was an episode that constantly spews out comedic commentary every single minute, and the biggest reason as for why this episode is so hilarious is because of Professor Oobleck himself.
It's Dr. Oobleck.
I mean Dr. Oobleck. His speech pattern, voice acting, and even design easily makes him my favorite RWBY character. Sorry, Nora, you're still my second favorite.
I'm hurt! Sad!
The way he dramatically accentuates every line of dialogue and delivers them with such passion and enthusiasm, the way he describes every single solitary description with such speed and precision that makes Eminem run for his money, and the fact that he looks so goofy with those blank white eyes yet surprisingly attractive, everything about this character just screams hilarity. Oh yeah, I should actually talk about the story, huh? Alright, well, Team RWBY is searching for the bad guy's hideout outside of the walls of the kingdom. Most of what I said that happened was explained during the Chapter 10 explanation. 3 of the 4 girls were talking about why they wanted to become huntresses, and I do think the scenes were more well thought out when Oobleck was interrogating the 3 of Team RWBY. And I do enjoy how he's not always about jokes and humor. He does have a more serious side when it comes to describing the grim and the grim nature of the grim. How not every single creature is worth killing, and how while he's capable of using weapons to accomplish his goal, and trust me, later on in the volume you'll see he's not joking, he wants to solve the world's problems with his knowledge, not with his bronze. And that's what made me believe that he's the best character in the series. He's very well developed in just one episode. Before, we thought of Dr. Oobleck as nothing more than just a goofy, stereotypical hyper-coffee drinking teacher, but they've truly fleshed him out not only humorously, but respectably as well. In terms of character development, I believe this is one of the best just from the gap of how much they've developed a single side character. It also helps that the voice actor, Joel Heyman, did an excellent job at conveying this character. The episode ends with the team setting up for night shift and Yang questioning whether or not Dr. Oobleck interrogated her, thus setting up the next episode, leaving a foreboding aura within the 3 out of the 4 of Team RWBY. Anyone? No? Not you guys? Oh, f*** you guys. The best day ever, unironically, is one of the best episodes ever. But before we get to the infamous fight scene, we have some development to do with the 2 henchmen of the villains, Mercury and Emerald. I'm guessing they named them that because of the color of their hairstyles? I mean, come on, isn't that kind of like naming a redhead Ruby? Despite these characters being young, they are not a force to be reckoned with, as their knowledge and research helped them interrogate a bookstore owner because of his misleading motto, and ultimately killing him. Afterwards, we get to our main characters and their day in the cafeteria, and I think you know what happens next.
Justice will be swift! Justice will be painful! It will be delicious!
This food fight is easily the reason why this episode is so high. The fight is so over the top, so epically amazing, it makes any Platinum Games look like algebra class. It's pointless, it adds nothing to the story, but the fight scene is so well choreographed and the weapon of choice provided with each character is so well done. A watermelon mallet, wiener whip, swordfish rapier, f***ing turkey? This fight scene was so well animated, so well paced, and so hilariously over the top goofy. I just had to put this episode so high because of this single scene. It even ends with a fantastic climax where RWBY does this spinning thingy onto Team Juniper, causing a tsunami of edible substance, and crashes into the wall, causing a mural of food graffiti. God damn, with this much vandalism, how in God's name is our heroes gonna get out of this predicament? Well, Professor Austin seems to let the gang off the hook by calming down Glinda and saying that they should have their fun since they're only just kids. You're a fucking terrible teacher, you know that? Now that's not to say that was the only thing I liked about this episode. I enjoyed the villain's introduction and their characters. These two are menacing little creatures and are so devious and evil. It makes me wonder how they blend in with our main heroes. And for the first episode in the brand new series, they certainly did not disappoint. It's over-the-top silliness and it's a tension builder. A great way to introduce new RWBY fans and a great fan service filled episode for the veterans. Eat shit, Cardin. This episode starts off appropriately with Cardin and his team getting his ass kicked by Pyrrha, proving this one-dimensional bully how completely useless he is in the story. Move aside, Cardin, the real threat here is named Mercury. The fight scene with Mercury and Pyrrha is well executed, and this time it actually has a purpose in the story. Mercury wants to fight Pyrrha to gain intel on her psychokinetic ability. What's surprising is that Mercury put up a very good fight against her, so the possibility of him beating her, especially with the knowledge that he's gained, could lead up to something tragic later on with the series. Speaking of tragic, Blake is still in her lament mode where she's trying really hard to find any information on Tortrick in this game, but her friends want her to slow down and take things slow. But due to her nature, she's more unwillingly determined to take this man down. Thus, she storms out to the library to stress herself out even more, starting the trend of her determined will and frustration. Oh yeah, and this happened.
Oh,
You can't tell he's the dork of the group. This is reflected more in his combat training with Pyrrha, where he laments about his situation with Weiss and how she's constantly rejecting him to the dance. I can see why though. The episode ends with our villain adding Pyrrha to the hit list. This episode builds up the tension within each character, from Blake's struggles, Sean's self-esteem, and Pyrrha's weakness, and while one of the situations won't get resolved until the next season, they amp up the drama very well. Because of this, when watching the next episode, I absolutely cannot wait for the next episode to see how they resolve the situation.
Oh, please. If you don't get a date to the dance, I'll wear a dress.
Jean?
That foreshadowing. Dance Dance Infiltration is about enjoying life to the fullest, being alongside with friends and having a blast with one another. Even with the troubles like Jean's rejection, Pyrrha's rejection, or Neptune's inability to dance, yeah, I didn't really care about this character. Each friend eventually help each other overcome their struggles and just have a blast at the dance. And of course, the infamous dance scene. Monty is known for his amazing dance skills, and it's reflected on the majority of his animation. So of course, this nod little fan service was implemented nicely, and it increases his John's and Pyrrha's character development with their relationship with one another. So everything's all good, right? RWBY and her friends are having fun, socializing, enjoying the music. Nothing can go wrong in this fantastic day of enjoyment. Yep, there's no reason for me to put up such a happy episode onto this list without some sort of tension. Luckily for us, RWBY notices the danger and runs after Cinder. Yes, it's spoilers, but come on, that's so obviously Cinder. Both of them confronted with each other at the top of the building with an awesome fight scene. This fight scene shows Cinder's dust powers and how she was able to manifest weapons and elements at will. As soon as Ironwood enters the scene, Cinder escapes the hot zone and accomplishes her mission. I'd like to give special points towards the music department at the end of Dance Dance Infiltration, where the song plays a bittersweet melody. While everyone is having fun enjoying the school dance, outside of those walls an infiltration abrupts positivity, and with the success of the villain's espionage, they dance away and fight another day, for their escapades continues at bay. This episode fills me with so much emotion, from happiness to depression instantaneously. It's a fun ride of joy, but later on punches you straight to reality of the harsh outcomes life has to offer outside of the walls. Like the time I tried to record myself dancing in Dance Central and then realized how stupid I look? No, you're not gonna see that footage.
Now it's time to say goodbye.
So, here we are, in the number 2 segment, and much like every other countdown where it showcases every single entry, if I reveal what the number 2 segment is, I'm going to reveal what the number 1 segment is. So in order to combat against that predicament, I'm going to be talking about both Chapter 11 and Chapter 12 in this one session. No Break starts off with RWBY getting caught by Torchwick and his minions, but that's okay because her teammate and Dr. Oobleck is there to rescue her. Originally a recon mission, they changed their plans to stop the train from departing to the city walls. On top of stopping the breaks, there are bombs placed in every single train deck as the bad guys try to decup each train deck. To top it off, Grims are being provoked to stop the heroes. So yeah, our hero seems to appear in a very sticky situation, with every single enemy going after our heroes to stop the search and destroy mission from being accomplished. RWBY and Dr. Oobleck runs on their way into the front of the train only to be stopped by a bunch of Metal Gears. Now, how are they going to get past this predicament? Jesus! Holy crap! With that kind of firepower, you could decimate an entire warhead! Zwei, you are the best goddamn dog ever! Dr. Oobleck also manages to share more of his manpower as he has the ability to shit up. God damn, Oobleck wasn't kidding when he said that he could easily solve his problems with violence. Meanwhile, with our other heroes, Yang, Weiss, and Blake fight against 3 of Torchwick's henchmen, with Yang fighting against Napoleon, Weiss fighting against a White Fang lieutenant, and Blake dealing with Torchwick himself. The interesting thing about these 3 battles is the person getting the upper hand in the fight, with Yang losing her battle, Weiss winning the battle but ultimately losing at the end, and Blake winning in her battle against Torchwick. Yang has no experience with Napolitan, thus her aggressive nature causes her to get baited by Napolitan's counterattacks, thus having no upper hand in her battle. The only reason why she manages to survive is because of this mysterious figure in red saving her from death. In Weiss's battle, the lieutenant is actually the aggressive one. With his desire to kill someone from the Schnee family, his greed both helps him due to his strong-willed nature, but hinders him due to his cockiness. And in Blake's fight, well... yeah, Torchwick sucks at fighting. It also makes sense for Blake to overcome her struggles against Torchwick. Back in Volume 1, Blake had a fight scene with Torchwick, so she was able to pick up Torchwick's fighting style. With Torchwick being so aggressive in his personality, he hasn't been able to learn from her playstyle, especially now that she implements her dust within her weapon. Each 3 battles show how aggressive play will lead to defeat, and how strategy, timing, and more reflexes is the key to victory rather than irrational destructiveness. At the end of those fight sequences, Team RWBY is about to brace for impact. The train is not stopping anytime soon, so they need to protect themselves somewhere. Here comes Weiss to the rescue with her ice crystals in defense, ending the episode with a train crash and Grims invading Vale. Next in Chapter 12, Breach, Jean is worried about RWBY and her teammates as he thinks they're in trouble after a phone call of nothing but gunfire. After the sirens are blasted, Team Juniper changes their mission in order to help Team RWBY. Alongside them, it seems like the villains of the group are also having difficulties with their interrupted mission. Curious about the situation, they too spring into action. And speaking of action, prepare to see the most testosterone-filled ecstasy you will ever see for the next 6 minutes of the episode. And because I love road running gags, 1 minute explanation. Ready, set, go! RWBY leaps over his overgrip Chevys while Blake plays Call of Duty with her MP5. Yang soars to the sky as she punches with shotgun blows. Nora soars to the skies as well and hits a cobra with 8 million forces of newtons. She's also a professional baseball player. Jean gets scared pantless fighting a humongous grim enemy while Pierre observes from the sidelines. But that's okay because Jean uses Zandatsu to tear his ass up! And this is without using Pierre's polarity powers. It seems like Jean is a lot more capable than we expected. Oh hi Sun and Neptune. I still see Team Sun is still not together yet. Yeah, they're just there, hanging around. They don't even have a fight sequence. What a shame. Did I mention these 2 are my least favorite characters? An army of Ivory soldiers joined in to stop the invasion. McGree and Emerald also joined the fight and kicked so much ass! And here comes the most powerful team RWBY has presented thus far. You thought that the previous fight scenes were awesome? Oh, you haven't seen nothing yet! Holy shit, did her briefcase just turn into a fucking machine gun? That's wicked awesome! God damn, this bitch got so much swagger. Bang, 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 suckers! Yeah, bird, take that! Explosions! Now there's a caption for this episode, it's absolutely rad! 12 out of 10! So, yeah, guess what my number 1 favorite episode is? I mean, I think the answer is obvious from my over-the-top explanation towards the final chapter of Volume 2. My number 1 best episode of RWBY's Volume 2 is No Breaks. Yeah, I thought the episode prior to the season finale was actually a better episode than the season finale itself. And this is not just some sort of psych, ha, I'm gonna switch the number 1 and 2 segments. No, I'm being serious. As much as I absolutely enjoy the over-the-top nature of Chapter 12, that's all that this episode has. After the episode, Team RWBY recaps on the situation, Cinder's faction considers the event to be a success, and we have a cliffhanger of a woman who saved Yang back at the train. It's a very good cliffhanger, and I'm still on the edge on my seat as to what's going to happen in Volume 2. but I feel I enjoy the drama, the animated fight scenes, and the build up to the next episode and no breaks more than the season finale, making this episode very entertaining. Plus, if I have to be honest, the resolution for the fact that the Grim monsters are invading Vale was awfully resolved quickly. I know Team RWBY and the gang have faced against near-death situations, and the fight scenes that happened during that 6 minutes was over the top and amazing, but if that's the way they ended the invasion, well, it pretty much makes every single character way too OP. The point I'm trying to get across here is that this episode feels way too epic, and in all due honesty, that's kind of immersion breaking. Because of the character's OP nature, it makes me worry about the future of the RWBY series. How are they going to top those obstacles, and if they can overcome those challenges? That's what makes every single individual character unique. That's also why I enjoyed the over-the-top fight scenes in the previous episodes. Rather than have every character decimate anything in their path, there was at least an obstacle. In Players and Pieces, the fight scene was showing Team RWBY and Team Juniper's teamwork with one another, giving the team a very balanced symmetry. In Black and White, Blake was putting up a good fight against Torchwick. She wasn't always beating him, she had some struggles along the way. It wasn't until Sun's gunchuck that saved her from total defeat, letting her fight another day. And yeah, I should also say about Penny, after all, she's also pretty damn OP, and it's obvious that with the resources up her arsenal, it seems she can overcome any situation. But the thing is, I like Penny's character due to her robotic personality, not from her big guns. Which is why I love the fight scenes in No Breaks a lot more than Breach. I'm not saying Breach was a bad episode, I mean, I placed it on the number 2 spot for a reason, but I feel like I enjoyed Breach as a one-time view. The first time I tried to develop this countdown, Chapter 12 was pretty much destined to be on my number 1 spot. That is until I actually developed the list and rewatched the episode multiple times. And the more I watched it, the more I realized how well put together Chapter 11's episode was. It combined everything I love about the RWBY episodes, while Chapter 12 just cranks everything up to 11. I view Chapter 11 as a balance. It has the perfect amount of drama, perfect amount of tension, and the fight scenes has a purpose in the story and in future developments of the series. Whereas Chapter 12 feels too overly exaggerated in its fight sequences. Nonetheless, it's still an amazing adrenaline ride, and the song Coffee really fits in with the fight scenes in its entirety, going nuts with energy you consume and going crazy. However, in the end of the day, I look at the series in its entirety, and in my opinion, Chapter 11 gets my number 1 spot as my favorite RWBY episode in Volume 2. I'm basing right there in 3, guys, and remember, I'm a musical instrument and not a fish. And I swear to God, Death Battle, if Yang loses against Tifa, I will fucking kill you! Okay, fine, you guys waiting for the credits. I think you guys deserve this.
I won't need any dream.